Welcome to Sinister Heroes. I'm your host, Danny Iniquitous. Thank you for tuning in. If you're new to the channel, this is a channel about Dungeons and Dragons where we try and take a darker tone with everything you do here. So if you like a creepier kind of content, definitely hit that like and subscribe button. A big thank you to our Patreon supporters. We love you guys. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. What you do is absolutely amazing. It definitely helps this channel keep going forward and moving forward. If you're interested in becoming a Patreon supporter, the link is in the description, as well as a link to our good friends at Critical Failures, where we're part of a live stream game on Wednesday nights. Check us out, and with all that out of the way, we're going to jump into another DM tips, what to do when things start going off the rails. So what do you do when things go off the rails? This is something that all DMs face, whether you're a new DM or an experienced DM. At some point, your players might just go off on some wild tangent, and you kind of feel like you're scrambling to put things together, or you feel like you're juggling a whole bunch of plates just to figure out how to put this together and make things go forward. This is something we all have to deal with, and we all have to be open to. We're going to cover a couple of ideas and a couple of preparation things that usually kind of set up that opportunity or a way to kind of mitigate how often that occurs, to help you know that you have your players going towards the story that you're kind of working together to finish. So we're going to jump to that, and the first thing we're going to talk about is preparation and how to kind of have things ready to go. So how does this happen? Usually, from my experience, your party members get involved in a small little sentence or hint that wasn't really intended to be a hint, but just something to kind of draw attention. Or maybe something that was never meant to be a red herring, but they just picked up on it. If you give them a couple of opportunities to, they kind of develop their own reasoning behind it, which is great. So if you can get your characters to kind of discuss between them what they think is happening, or what kind of purpose they have for doing this, that'll give you a little bit of an idea as to what they want to do and what they're expecting to do. So what do I mean by that? How do we get our party to talk to each other? Say your party went into a tavern and someone mentioned this old house that was, abandoned a little while ago. They've seen some strange things. The whole town is weird, but it's just describing the atmosphere of the town. But one of your players get hooked on this idea that maybe there's something to it. Now, you don't have anything prepped. You have no idea what to do or what you're going to do in that meantime. So, how do you get an idea? One of the ways I like to do is, if you have the kind of party that is very receptive to talking to each other and having those ideas, use that as a talking point between them for you to gather what they're looking for. Now, you have your reasoning for why they ended up in that town anyway. A quest, they're here to divide something, deliver something, fix something, or whatever it is. So that's why they're there in that area. Maybe you just kind of want to describe something or lay out kind of a vibe for the area, and it got taken into this kind of direction. Ask the other people who were a little bit more silent, especially if they haven't fully agreed to go there. But it seems, or like everyone in the party agreed to go there, but they weren't like super like, yeah, let's go. Ask them, what do they expect to happen? Get into the idea of asking your players, what are you looking forward to? What are you going to there to do? Are you going to there to look for something? Do you tend to go break in? And use that to kind of mitigate what they're doing, and use what they give you as a reason. Players like to feel like wherever they go, they're doing something that matters, something that's going to progress the story, something that's going to be interesting. Now, are you always going to progress the story? No. Depending on where you are level-wise, you should know a couple of monsters to kind of combat if you do have to have a combat. You don't have to, but just in case you did, we're going to talk a little bit later about how to do that and how to prep for that if it kind of caught you on the fly. Now, getting your characters to talk to each other is very key for this, because it gives you an answer, it gives you a direction, and it gives you a thing that can give your characters an opportunity to feel satisfied when they get there. Because you want to go there. You don't want to go there and just go, oh, this is just an abandoned house, and just, carry on to something else. If you can get that abandoned house to shed some sort of light on some of the other characters in that town, that might be great. You might be able to break into that house and just have a couple of jump scares or whatever, and have there be a note. Have there be a description about some of the more nefarious characters in that town. Have it be an enemy that maybe just vanished that they were onto something. Say, I have suspicions of this character. I feel like they're up to no good, and this is my diary. I found them here and there, and have the pages spread out, creaky floors, and then just like holes and stuff that they fall through or whatever, and have it tell the story. It doesn't have to be in-depth. It doesn't have to be a great, like, huge creative story. You don't have to write a masterpiece. But you can come up with things like that pretty quickly depending on what you are doing. Take what you have, what you know already, or what you want to happen, and use that as an opportunity to kind of leave a breadcrumb to what you want to happen. Kind of make it circle back. Use that as a turning point, maybe to get them back on track or something. Or, and one of the other things we're going to talk about is using character classes to help answer those questions and use that as a suitable circumstance for that. So how do you prep to be thrown off the rails? You can't really predict it, but you can do things to help give you the best time necessary to solve these problems. First and foremost is be aware of when you're ending sessions. Don't wait for the clock to strike whatever hour and go, all right, that's where we got to cut it off. Try your best to end it at a point where you've completed something, or at least an objective or something, entered a new place, or you're at a cliffhanger. Those are really the best places to do it, because then you have that time once your session starts to actually jump into some new stuff and that's kind of giving them the opportunity for that to happen. But you want that, because by the time the characters find this event that they want to take part of and kind of, or create a reasoning for that throws you off your own kind of pathway, it gives them time to discuss amongst themselves, do whatever shopping or whatever things they want to do in town, and then make their way out there. That is a blessing, because you use that completion of whatever it is they're going to do before they head out there, and you use theater of the mind to describe the area to help mitigate whatever. If you're using tabletops like virtually and maps and things like that, you could just theater of the mind a description of the outside of the house. The reason why I suggest doing that is because if you're not very proficient in doing theater of the mind, which is when you just use your words and describe everything, which is like the original, like a lot of the old school D&D was a lot like that. What you do is you use that to buy you time and then take a break, because at this point, depending on, especially if they involve shopping and things like that, it's going to take a huge amount of time, because it's usually just not a very quick endeavor. Take that time, take a break, say, hey, going to need 15 minutes, and pull a couple of maps if you have to. If you're working online with virtual tabletops, there's plenty of free maps out there. You can pull Broken Down House 1, 2, 3 and just grab whatever it is. It doesn't have to be perfect. You're kind of putting it together in a few minutes. And then take the time to wrap in why they're there. What is the vibe of this place? Who are some of the players? This, again, is a great opportunity to put that together. You don't need to have combat. If you want to have combat, one of the things that's good preparationally wise is know where your characters are level wise and a good combat for them. Whenever they hit a new level, as soon as that happens, it is your responsibility as a DM to be prepared for combats that are appropriate for that level. The reason being, if you're too strong for an area, say you skipped an area and you're going back to it, and the area you went to made you go up in level, and when you went back, you were a little higher level from that place. But you still want to make things challenging and interesting. You don't want things to be too easy, because it's kind of a waste when you're just mowing down things without ever really taking a stop or any damage or any real heavy resources. So you should, whenever your characters level up, have an understanding as to enemies within their challenge rating that's appropriate for your party, not necessarily the numerical level. Some people are extremely proficient in combat, some people are not. Some people are min-maxers, some people are not. Some people are wizards that don't take offensive spells at all, and some people are wizards that only take offensive spells. So like figuring out that is something you kind of work through no matter what you're doing, but it's important to do a recount when they level up or when they get very powerful magic items, because you need to balance the encounters, and that's according to how you want to do encounters. that is something you should do every level up anyway. So that way when you do have to have combats, especially if you have to have combats just randomly out of the blue, or if you feel like maybe it's been too long since you had a combat and you want to just throw it in the mix so that way people just don't get bored or get exhausted from adventuring constantly, that way you can just put them in. This would be a great place to kind of just grab one collection of whatever that challenge rating would be, put them in, and have a combat real quick if you're proficient enough to do it quickly. If not, do adventuring. Use this for role-playing purposes. Have this be a purpose to tell the story. A great thing about a bad guy is knowing why you hate them. One of the big problems with D&D is most of the bad guys you don't know. They're doing things behind the scenes. There's evil machinations moving on and on and on, and you never encounter them till the end. So you're basically knocking down a stranger's door and going, hey, stop trying to take over the world. Boom, boom, boom. It doesn't tell as much of a story as it does in, say, like Curse of Strahd, where you meet Strahd. You grow to hate Strahd. You begin to really just not want to be around him. You don't want to be in his world. You want to take him down. And why? It's because you interact with them. You get to personally hate them. And a lot of the times, you don't get that as much, or it's not easy to apply that. But this is a great way to help bridge that gap. If you are currently working on a certain character's backstory and implementing it here, this would be a great way to kind of take some of that, and at least if you're about to start, or if you've already started, this would be a good opportunity to be like, hey, this is your moment now. These people here are secretly your people, but you didn't know that, or they're connected to your backstory, or some item or something that helped bring you here. That's a great way to add some of that in there. And in regards to that, you should really kind of have those ideas set. Just not necessarily set exactly where you need them, but a couple of those things should be like foreshadowing. Like say you're working on one character's backstory, this could be a great way to just sprinkle in the next character's backstory, so that way they can feel like, oh, there's something going on, like maybe this will help pull that character more into the story. And that's a great tool. I personally like circling to characters, as I mentioned before, that are already around in that area. Let them know some of the power dynamics and the political dynamics. If you're in a situation that is not in a town and your parties just kind of go, oh, you know what, we were traveling, we looked at the map, there's a cemetery over here, and we're supposed to be going to the caravans to the north. They have a base camp, they're going to be there permanently, so let's just go to the cemetery. Now you got to come up with a whole circumstance for the cemetery, or what's going to happen there. Cemeteries are great. I just love spooky stuff, so it's definitely up my alley. But what do you do? What do you do? Do you now have characters going to a cemetery because of a map that you pulled off somewhere and you didn't read thoroughly, and here you go. Characters need to go to the cemetery. Well, everybody loves fighting zombies and skeletons, so you could easily grab a whole bunch of them there. Dependent on who you have in your party, this could be a perfect moment. What clerics do you have? Do you have clerics? Do you have paladins? Do you have warlocks? Do you have druids? Any one of those things could be a gift to you in this moment. If you're on the wild and you just got pulled into like a strange stone formation that was just there just to be like, oh, you know, this ancient people used to be here. This is your druid's moment. Put something in druidic written on the stones and make them have to make a check just to verify that they can read it, or find out that, or just find it there. And then when they do, tell the story of some of the ancient people that are part of the story anyway. And if the characters want to investigate it further, or maybe they need to find an item or something, maybe put like a false item or something that looks like it, or like an image or a picture or a stone carving of someone handing that item to someone else that is like directed at maybe an old leader or something, so they can kind of trail that back. It's great when you do that stuff, because not only does the character feel like, oh, it's cool, it's me, it's my turn. It's giving validity to the classes in the world and tying them closer to the world. Anything with a cemetery, you can easily pull clerics, depending on what part of what, domain they're in, could really affect that. Wizards could be, if they're a necromancer, let's go to the cemetery. Have them read something that has mention of the books of the the necromancy books of Thay, any of those books that are great historic memoirs of necromancers can be there. Hints about how others see necromancy. That's a great way to say, I was forced to live out here because the city deemed me putrid or unworthy and unclean, even though it was my undead that saved their city countless times. When peace came, they came towards me. Like, that's a great way to show the dichotomy of, like, oh, I can use all these evil powers, but people don't like me. Like, which should be factual in all your games, but, obviously, depending on how you want to run it. But that's a great way to give the classes validity, make them feel like that class matters. You know what I mean? Like, being a paladin and walking into a small village, like, you're a paladin. Like, we've never seen nothing but fighters. Like, that's something that should have value and weight to it. And this is a great opportunity to do it. Yeah, you're taking off the rails, but having respect for the classes, this could be a great period to kind of bring that together. And show that these character classes and these choices for these characters to dedicate themselves to these classes shows something about who they are and their journey. Now, real quick, because warlocks happen to be my favorite class, warlocks and their patrons. Any circumstance where it might be scary, it might be spooky, it might be weird, is a perfect place for a fae, fiend, undead, hexblade to really have a message for the character or interact with them or just verify what they're doing. Have them walk into the area, make everyone make a save that they're not gonna pass, except for the warlock, and then have that one moment with them. Have that one moment where, like, their patron is here to verify that they're keeping their pact, that they're doing what they're told and not what the warlock feels like they should do, especially if you're more evil aligned with your pact. Fiends will not appreciate you doing good deeds without a really beneficial purpose to them. Fae would want you to do whatever trickery they feel is necessary at the moment. And Fae will just put everyone to sleep just to mess with their dreams and see what's going on, or just see if you have a funny joke to tell them in order to keep your pact going. It's things like that give your class that, like, yeah, like, I'm so different. Like, it's a great thing when your character feels like what they do and what their class is more than just how they attack and fight in combat. And warlocks are wonderful the same way clerics are, that you can use these patrons and you can use these deities to push the story. If the characters really get off track and this whole thing goes, like, out of nowhere, they want to go to other cemeteries, other strange ruins, they don't ever want to go forward, you can use these patrons, these deities, whatever it is, for these more outer planes aligned classes, and force them to get back on track. They don't have to do exactly what the story it is, but, like, they're beholden to these entities for their power. And if they do not satisfy these entities, that power goes away. Imagine being a warlock where you cannot use charisma. You cannot use your pact weapons. You cannot use any of that. So if you just min-max your stats to just have charisma and constitution, well, now you just have constitution. See how differently that immediately starts to go, oh no, that's not fun. But that's a great way to motivate. Because they just have to go, all right, let's get right back on track. And as soon as that happens, you can turn it right back on because they're now doing what they're told. You don't have to be heavy-handed with it. I personally like to be treated poorly by my DMs. That's a lot of probably stuff I should talk to someone about. But I like that stuff. It makes me feel like my choices matter. It makes me feel like my pact matters. My reason for following this domain, my reason for following this deity, like my reason for doing all this stuff, it matters. And right now I was tested and I followed through, so I'm rewarded by being able to keep my magical power as opposed to losing it because I have failed and I have gone against my word. That is kind of like my jam. But incorporating something like that doesn't have to be so heavy-handed, it's a great way to get your characters not only on track, but involved in the story. Because now they're being pulled by other entities that are part of who they are, that are trying to make them say, hey, pay attention, and get on track. It's a blessing to have warlocks and clerics in your party. Absolutely use that to your benefit. It is the best way to course correct as a safety net for when things go really crazy. With all that said and done, we're going to bring this video to a close. If you've had this issue happen a lot and you thought our ideas were great, definitely let us know in the comments. If you had different ones that worked really well for you, definitely let us know. We'd love to hear more about it, especially with circumstances like this, because it happens to everyone and it is a frequent issue that you kind of have to mitigate, or at least have a mindset for being able to handle when it does come up, because it will come up. And it's a good opportunity. Don't look at it as a negative thing. Look at it as an opportunity for your characters to now have a cool little personal segment that helps define what they're doing and make it a little interesting. Even if though it's not directly connected to the story, using your characters to fill those gaps is what they want. It makes them feel important. It makes their backstories feel important. It makes their classes feel important. It makes them feel like what reason they have to be here is important, and that's what you want. Then it gets them more tied into the story, which is something we definitely need to cover, because that's really, really, really important. With all that said and done, again, we're bringing this video to a close. If you made it this far, definitely hit that like and subscribe. A big thank you to our Patreon supporters. We love you guys. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. And a big thank you to our good friends at Critical Failures, where we'll be playing Wednesday nights at about 9:30. The links for both of those are in the description. And thank you for giving a spooky kid a chance.